Welcome to the Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. This podcast is dedicated to providing the key ingredients to transform your employees into a dream team, creating consistent results in every aspect of your business, including your people, your process, and your profits. Your team empowerment, leadership, business development, communication, hiring, and firing. As some of the country's leading staffing and management consultants, we help business owners, i.e. entrepreneurs, and the team that support them, what we call intrapreneurs, to powerfully connect and work together to grow the business. Welcome to another episode of the award-winning Hiring and Empowering Solutions podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. And if you're a first-time listener, hopefully you'll become a long-time listener. As always, I'm your show host, Molly McGrath, and you can check us out at hiringandempowering.com. New to this podcast is we are going to start beefing it up and recording twice a week. So once a week, we will have a legal leader that we are interviewing from either the attorney or the employee side. And then also we are going to start adding the Tuesday tool of the week. So please subscribe and make certain that you check that you don't miss anything there. In this episode, we are going to be talking about having the confidence to create a niche-specific practice and say no to absolutely everything else. I'm so excited today for our guest. We have Justin Stivers here, and Justin is a probate attorney and the owner of the probate law firm. And your website is probatefirm.com. So thank you, Justin, for joining us today.
For having me, Molly.
Yeah, indeed. I'm going to dive right in. I know this is a topic that I deal with all the time in 22 years of coaching and also supporting people with the hiring process. When I get on a discovery call with them, I'll say, tell me a little bit about your practice area. And sometimes they'll have 3-5 different ways that they generate revenue and or focus on their areas. And when I start talking to them about their vision of their firm, so often they'll talk about their buddy they golf with, people that they met at local bar associations or national legal conferences, and saying, so-and-so is making so much money. They have such a great work-life balance. And I'm thinking I might start adding X to my practice. And they may not have their existing practice systematized and or clarity on their why, and very passionate about what they're doing, and they're chasing rabbits all over the place. And what I love about your practice, Justin, when I had met you earlier in the year, is how niche specific you are. And on call number 1, you were like, we do probate and probate only. We don't do anything else. And it was so inspiring to hear that from you, and the clarity that you had around your practice model and your passion around what you focus on. I'd love for you to just share your backstory with us and how you got so confident and so streamlined and focused on your one thing in regards to probate law.
Yeah, probably through a lot of mistakes. That's how I got. So backstory real quick. So I don't come from a family of lawyers. First lawyer in my family. In fact, first person to graduate college from my family. Was in the Peace Corps after undergrad. Lived in Honduras for a couple of years. Went to law school at University of Miami School of Law, and graduated. Went to work for a couple of firms, and had a kind of string of bad luck. The first firm let me go. I was the youngest associate there. They wanted more seasoned attorneys. They let me go. Went to work for another firm. That firm filed for bankruptcy. It's just kind of one thing after the next. I ended up partnering up with another attorney, and we really didn't have a plan behind it. I know I don't know, even I think it's kind of crazy when I speak with younger attorneys or attorneys now, and they've got either a nest egg that they're going out on, or they're kind of, just planning to, make that jump from a firm they were at. I had no clients. I had, I don't even know how much money, but, probably less than $1,000 to start it. And I just kind of thought, hey, I had nothing to lose, kind of thought that I could do something. So opened up a firm with another guy, And we certainly weren't niched. It seemed like as we grew, we started doing more and more types of law. We started where he was doing mostly real estate closings. I was doing just general litigation, but it was kind of foreclosures, evictions, landlord tenants. But I dabbled in some immigration cases. I took on some property cases, just kind of a mix of things. And it was hard. One, it's just hard to become really not even great, but even good or just proficient at several types of law. I mean, every time, a new case came in, it's like, okay, great. You see that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever it is, okay, now go learn how to do a divorce. And if you really track the hours, you're probably losing money by the time you're spending trying to learn that type of law. And so I don't know, but when you're starting out, you kind of have to pay the bills, and the thought of sending out cases just doesn't really seem too appealing. But anyways, that partnership kind of we did fine, but I always tell people who have partners, it's kind of like a marriage, or if you want to paint the wall blue and they want to paint the wall gray, someone's got to compromise at some point. And so I just kind of got to the point where I didn't really want to compromise. And I got exposed to probate with him before we kind of dissolved that partnership. And so I got exposed to probate because most of our clients were getting referred to us by realtors. And since we were doing closings, we saw a lot of our business coming from them. And I was really self-taught. I really didn't have, probate is not, I don't think anyone either growing up or in law school, or really that many people as attorneys are just itching to be probate attorneys. It's not really, the most, stimulating topic, and it's dealing with death, and it's, kind of an awkward conversation to have. And but I don't know, something about it. I saw it from a business opportunity that there's not, because there's not that buzz around it. There's not a lot of people doing it. I just kind of saw a niche for it. And I saw that it, there are a lot of good, I guess, there's a lot of good things that I saw about it in terms of both business and in terms of, helping, and just a lot of different things that kind of attracted me to it. But when we split up the firm, I don't know that I could pinpoint exactly how I decided I'm only going to do one type of law. I did, when we dissolved that firm, I did take a couple cases with me, some general litigation, some foreclosures and different things. But I knew that I wanted to really start marketing specifically for probate, which I hadn't done before. And honestly, I think one of the things that made me realize I wanted to just focus on one area is that from the very beginning, let alone learning the subject matter, I think, whenever I hear an attorney now tell me they specialize in bankruptcy, family law, criminal, I'm like, there's no way you might be good and you might be able to do a case, but I know you can't be the best of the best at that. But what kind of started it for me was just hiring the client and building out systems, building out the retainer agreement, the engagement letter, rather than have one engagement letter that I could just tweak based on price. If I'm taking a litigation case versus a probate case versus, whatever else, I've got to come up with it felt like building several different types of firms. So I just kind of felt from the get-go that trying to focus in on one was just going to make my life easier. I don't know if that was enough backstory, not enough backstory for you.
No, I think that was the perfect backstory that many people are shaking their heads and can resonate with in regards to taking what I call pay the rent law, anything that comes in and your phone's ringing, and doing that trial and error that you said, and being that jack of all trades. I love that analogy that you said. It felt like building out several areas or several different firms with all of those different types of businesses. And going through that, Justin, and something that you really said is that you saw the business opportunity, and then you said something that I don't know if it was intentional, but that you found a niche and then you found a need. And when you have a niche and a need, then you start to see the business opportunity and then being able to help people. And what better equation is there for building a purposeful business?
Yeah, and I think it becomes more fulfilling too. You get to go on a deeper level and really build out the practice, as opposed to, I kind of came to the realization that, at least for me, building a extremely efficient law firm is not enough, right? I mean, I think, I could build, and most attorneys out there can build really good firms and can make, decent money. But just building a really good firm, to me, is not enough. And I think that, by now really focusing in on this one niche, you get to kind of learn who your client is. And the clients who are coming to me have either recently or at some point lost somebody, right? So the nature of what I do, the only way that I can help is after somebody has passed away. And so that's kind of, the trigger that means it's a case for me. So now I get to kind of understand those type of clients, where they're coming from, and I get to build out things that are specific for that type of client. So now, some of the things that we're working on is we're incorporating grief therapy sessions as part of our practice, and just kind of neat things that, I hate to use the word holistic because it's so overused, but like holistic ways that are not just entirely about, yeah, we do a really great job on your case, we get your probate done quickly and all this stuff, which we do, but we get to really kind of know our client and build out things that's specific to them. And I think if someone's coming to you for a family law case or for a bankruptcy or a criminal, which are all painful things, they're all going through painful experiences, but what that client is going through is a little bit different for each one of those scenarios, or potentially different. And you don't really get to kind of delve into that. And that's where I'm at now, that because, the thought of me taking another type of case doesn't even cross my mind. I refer it out, immediately. It allows us to kind of get to know our clients and build out this practice in a way that I think is, for me, more rewarding than just having a really efficient firm. And one other thing I would say that, it's not also because I'm just completely altruistic. There is a benefit in, I rebranded the firm from my name to the probate law firm. And so there's a benefit of, standing out from everybody else when you're the go-to person. And when I go to a networking event and I hand out business cards and I stand up and I say, hey, Justin Stivers, owner of the probate law firm, there's no question what I do. And so people, I get most of my business from other attorneys. So I'm never, a family law attorney who doesn't do probate law is probably not going to hesitate to send me something because they know I would send them family law cases. Or, I'm not going to take a bankruptcy case. So a bankruptcy attorney doesn't have any problem sending that to me. And if you're a small solo attorney, if you do a little bit of everything, chances of you getting referrals, I think, are a lot more slim, because truthfully, we want referrals. And I'm never going to, I'm probably not going to send a client to a firm that does probate law because they're never going to send me anything. So, it's twofold. I mean, you definitely, I think, get to build out your practice and know your client better and give them additional services. But you also, from a business standpoint, from a branding perspective, it's great.
Exactly. And I love what you said for the young attorneys and or somebody who might be at a crossroads in regards to really, what do I want this firm to be? I am burned out. I have been doing closings and divorces and everything else and being the jack of all trade, and my energy, my focus, I feel like I'm on a roller coaster. I'm exhausted and I'm burned out. So if you're either a newbie or you're an oldie, if you will, a seasoned attorney, and looking at that rebranding perspective and getting very clear on your why, if you will, or your one thing. I know Justin and I were talking before we started recording today about the book, The One Thing. And if you have not read that, I highly, highly recommend it, because there are riches and niches. But what I love about what you had just said is you don't realize how much you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you need to go to a specialist, if you will, you're not going to go to somebody that does corporate tax returns and also working at H&R Block and also doing real estate closing, et cetera. No, you're going to look for the expert. You're going to look for the person that has that one thing, because you know exactly that they're the best in town, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, from a client perspective, again, when they call us, I can legitimately say, well, if you're looking for a probate attorney, that's all we do. So that's our one thing, that's our one thing that we do. And I think that goes a really long way. Again, as far as branding, as far as, people getting our name out there, having people find us, see what we do. Again, it goes as far as, your marketing. I mean, if you are doing several different types of law and you want to do a video or a blog or whatever it is, write a newsletter. If you're writing about all these different areas, I as the consumer am confused. Are you a commercial litigation attorney or are you a real estate attorney? Like because if I have a closing that I need help with, and your newsletter is telling me about all the bankruptcies that you filed, I'm not really thinking of you for that real estate closing. And I don't think, I don't think the client is, and again, I don't think the referral source is either.
Yeah, I always say that a confused mind says no. And it's so true. There's many attorneys that I get on their blogs or their newsletter, and I'm very confused on, number one, exactly what they do, and number two, exactly what they want me to do, because their messaging is very diluted. So one thing I just wrote down here, Justin, I love it, and I know you said the term holistic ways is a little overused in this day and age in the industry, in all industries, but having that clarity on that one thing and being niche specific in your practice, and you're sitting down and you're constantly looking at your business. And I know you belong to an extraordinary national organization, How to Manage a Small Law Firm, that supports you with really growing your business from a client experience, providing that Disney experience or Ritz-Carlton experience, if you will. It has to be so freeing and clear is the term that's coming to me. When you are sitting down doing strategic planning, et cetera, that you have that one thing and your freedom to be able to up level, to be able to add like the grief counseling, and to be creating these value adds, I'll call them, to your business to enhance your client experience. And it's not about from a place of manipulation, but it's absolutely from a place of value and service add. It has to be so freeing for you to have that clarity, to know that you're not creating a grief counseling program, but also creating how to get 10 steps, how to get your kids through the divorce, what have you. Your clarity as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and your focus and your energy has got to be so freeing, is the word that comes to me, based on if you have different revenue streams and business models.
Well, yeah, I think you're talking about something that actually we were working on last week, which was building out different packages. So different, probate packages, kind of like the idea of the, bronze, silver, gold sort of thing. And that's something that when you know what you do well, and you know that you do this kind of one thing, it allows you to, like what I was saying with the grief counseling, it allows you to build out these systems and these, benefits for the client that I think I couldn't, right now where I'm at, I couldn't imagine doing that for multiple areas of law. I would be completely overwhelmed. I mean, don't get me wrong. running any sort of business, even if you're extremely niche, is challenging, and it can be overwhelming at times. But it's a lot more overwhelming when you're trying to do something really well, like this thing that we're working on, offering these different types of packages for our clients. If I was doing that times 4 for 4 different areas of law, now you've got your staff. When you have a new employee, or now you're trying to train your staff, okay, if this person hires this, they're entitled to this. But if they hire it for this type of case, now they're entitled to these packages. It would just be completely overwhelming, and especially for I don't know, example, like today I was telling you before that we just brought on a new employee, and training her. She doesn't know anything. She's a strictly admin person, never worked in a law firm before. And I don't have to train her on all different types of clients that might be calling, and what you say if it's a family law client, or what you say if it's, a criminal. It's a lot easier to onboard people, which I'm sure you've experienced on, you helped me find a rock star paralegal. And so to be able to bring her on and just have her focus on one specific thing, I think she enjoys. It makes her job a lot easier, that she doesn't have to kind of know a little bit about everything. And then I can trust her, when I'm out building the company, building the brand and everything, I know that she really knows this one area of law, and I can kind of step away. So I know that might have gotten off a little topic a little bit from what you asked, but it is, I do think it is freeing, because you're not always looking for that next big thing. And it is tempting when you see, let's say, personal injury. Personal injury attorneys have the opportunity to make, a lot of money on a big case. And that's very tempting. But if, I know what goes behind, marketing for that, doing that type of work, I would just be completely overwhelmed trying to learn that area of law, market that type of area of law. And so by being very focused on this one area, it is freeing, because I don't have to go look at everything. I know I'm staying within my lane, and I know how much opportunity there is just in this one area.
Wow, you just spoken to an enormous strategic byproduct of this, which goes to employee hiring, training, and onboarding. To your point, and you mentioned this earlier in regards to having to customize engagement agreements and spend a tremendous amount of time on that, whether it's for divorce or probate or what have you. The clarity and the streamlining of this, even for a new employee, they're scared to answer the phone in a law firm to begin with. They don't want to mess it up. They understand the sensitive nature of answering a phone, especially when it's attached to the law, right down to the receptionist. But when you have this clarity as a business model, and you share what we do and why we do it and how we do it, when you have such a niche specific practice, how simple and clean is that, number one. But number two, it allows them to be present. It reduces their fear, their confusion, and their overwhelm, I would assert, just dramatically right off the bat. They know we do probate. This is why we do it, how we do it, what it looks like, and here's our intake process, if you will. And if you have systems, which I know you do, Justin, where you are meeting every week as a team talking about your conversion rates, your KPIs, and all that, and they have the ability to reflect back, all right, we got 10 phone calls that came in this week. This is what they were calling in for, and this is why they told me that they were calling and what they did as a next action. I'm just even thinking from a marketing perspective, as you build these different probate packages, and you're adding grief counseling, and you're adding all these different add-ons and value adds to your practice, your receptionist is like a golden goose for you, because they can provide so much wonderful information for what's out there and what the need is in the practice for you to be able to up level and streamline and refine and create value add, because of the clarity around being so niche specific. It's beautiful for an onboarding perspective, and I totally missed that one, so thank you.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned that, again, just from a strategic standpoint, is I have basically an intake person, and we have a script. So, there's really, you don't have a whole lot of time when someone calls your office, a potential client calls your office, if it's an internet lead, or even if it's a referral and you've never spoken with them before, the receptionist passes it to the intake person, or maybe your receptionist is the intake person. But I like, I control I try to control the experience for this potential client. So we have a script that the intake person walks them through. And obviously the questions that we ask to determine whether or not it's a case that we handle are geared towards probate, towards what we do. So, the question of when did the person pass away is probably not a relevant question for a bankruptcy, So we're that person who's doing the intake doesn't have to sift through all these different scripts, and they become very fluent and fluid really at these intakes, and it just makes the intake process that much better. I mean, obviously in the beginning they're kind of reading it, but once they've done it enough times, where I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's going to sound very natural doing intake for 4 different areas of law.
No, not at all. Absolutely. And it gives them, again, I just cannot say enough. People will always hire you because they feel safe, they feel heard, and they feel acknowledged. And it's very difficult. And I think with that, you have to have active listening and be very present. And I think if you have all these different areas, you're just worried about what form should I be using, especially clients sometimes don't know, and they just puke out their entire life story. And so when they start shifting it and you hear the word divorce and then you hear the word bankruptcy, I would assume for an intake coordinator, you're paralyzed and you don't know which way to navigate and direct them towards.
Yeah, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole. And so my intake person, she knows she can very well tell if it's a case that we can't handle. And then again, to the marketing component of this, we've got a list of people that we would refer that to. So she can say, oh, is that you're looking for a divorce? Well, these are the divorce attorneys that we work with. Here, let me give you some names and numbers. And that way, now we're not just saying, no, that's not something that we don't do, but now we're making a referral that makes us look good to that client and to the person we're making the referral to. And it makes, again, like you said, the intake person's job a lot easier, and they're not all over the place trying to figure out if it's something that we do or don't do.
Right. And they're not delegating back up to saying, I'm not sure, let me talk to the attorney and get back to you, which I hear from attorneys all the time is that, I feel like everyone's just delegating back up to me, and it's because of the lack of clarity from that initial phone call. Or I love how you trained your team. Here's your list of referrals for all these different areas that people might need resources for, and they can handle that without creating an enormous call log or email for you to have to respond and get back to people. Beautiful. So one thing that I want to bring this back full circle to your backstory, because I'm just absolutely blown away. Like you said, I don't come from a family of lawyers. Most people say they get into law when I ask them that because dad, grandpa, somebody in the family had done that. And I love your story of how you did get to getting into the law to begin with. You get in this partnership with a young attorney at a young age, and you realized quickly that you didn't want to compromise. And I love that analogy of painting the wall that you used. And then you really had that aha moment, I'll call it, where you didn't want to compromise. Talk to me a little bit about having that awareness, whether that was a term you would have used at that time or not, and actually having the confidence to take the action to leave and choosing it from a place of what you didn't want, and then being able to have that space to craft what you did want. Do you have any insight in regards to just making that decision and then just taking some action on it? Any nuggets you would give to our listeners?
Yeah, I think now I would say this is somewhat of a moving object, but I am always kind of looking at what I want and where I want to go. So pretty daily, weekly, regularly, I'm kind of reevaluating what my goals are, where I want to go, what that looks like to me. I don't know that I had that vision necessarily at that moment when I was with that partner. But I do think I had some idea of where I wanted to go. Again, I think that changes over time with years and age, I guess. But I had some sort of idea that where I wanted to go, I couldn't do with him. And it wasn't from, again, there was no, this is not embezzlement. This was, we had a great friendship before, we have a great friendship afterwards. It was just that the way that I wanted to build the firm, the type of things that I wanted to do, I knew he wouldn't come along with. I hesitant to use the word risk because I think risk has such I don't know, a lot of people have an idea of what that means, but I would say I was riskier than he was in some aspects. I would consider it normal, but I wouldn't have considered, what I wanted to do risky. He probably would have. And I just think that there was probably 5 months where it was weighing on me. I knew I wanted to leave. I knew that I wanted to do something else. I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't want to partner anymore. And it was heavy on me. And I just finally just said, all right, either do it or don't do it. And I just kind of made the decision, all right, let's do it. And it's painful. It's a breakup. It's definitely painful. And, the logistics of it, moving, selling furniture, it's a pain, it's a pain, but now, it's nothing to me. It means, it doesn't matter at this point. But I think, to maybe answer your question is or what my, suggestion would be is that you kind of have to have an idea of what you want. So, literally sit down. What is it that you want to do? What is your goal for that year, for the next, 6 months, 5 years, whatever it is, however far out you can kind of see. And then if, try to chart that path out and see what that looks like. And if you have a partner, I would say you need to have that open conversation. And we did. We had, this wasn't, I didn't completely spring this on him either. We had several, I think to our credit, we had several open conversations where we did try to compromise. But you can only, in my opinion, you can only compromise so much before it's just like, what's the point of compromise anymore? We're opposites in this sense. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that was kind of my breakthrough, was just to identify what I wanted and then just look at where I was. And I just realized where I was not going to get me to where I wanted to be.
You answered that has really beautifully. And sometimes it is, I loved what you said about, and this for me is crucial for the listeners to hear, the 5 months of it weighing on me and weighing heavy on me. And I think that's like the biggest indicator right there. And I love that you said, if there's no drama, there wasn't a horrific story with the embezzlement or anything. It was that we weren't aligning in the model, and we both gave each other permission to not compromise even if you didn't have precise clarity on what you wanted. But sometimes if it's not this, that's what I'm hearing from you, is that's more than enough information at that time to at least take some kind of inspired action. And yes, there's risk attached to it, but there's a hell of a lot more risk by suffering in silence and spending 5 years, let alone 5 months, of letting it just gnaw at you. And even if you can't precisely name it what it is, you're just like, this doesn't feel right. There's a lot of energy going into running back and forth of all these different areas of law. Then it's robbing my focus. I feel like I'm not present. I'm a whirling dervish, whatever it is. And it just, when you're on in that blender, if you will, just knowing enough that I don't want to be in the blender anymore is more than enough information, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, I could go off on just kind of the necessity to just decide one way or the other. I think we all kind of, when something's not working, it's not working for the other person as well, and you can feel that, and you carry that with you. And that 5 months was probably, 4 months too long. I probably should have made that decision in the first month that I felt that. And you never really know in the moment if it's right or wrong. I mean, I had something recently where there's this kind of marketing idea that I had. It had been weighing on me, and I finally made the decision to just do it. It was a horrible idea. It failed. It was not a good idea. But it weighed on me so heavily. I just kind of said, all right, either do it or don't do it, and then just move on with it. And that's, I don't know if it's right or wrong necessarily, but you can't, I don't know, living in that sort of just limbo of letting it weigh over you is a horrible place to be. And you never really know what's going to happen. For me, it was the best decision I could have made. And I would say, I don't know, to the kind of the purpose of this one, as far as, niching down, I would say there are probably a lot of people who are maybe hesitant because you don't see you're afraid of turning away that money. And if it's me between being able to pay my rent and taking a case, I'll probably take the case because I want to live in my house. I want to make rent. But the sooner that you can get, and I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer or a number. I can't say, hey, month 1 into your practice, stop taking other cases. That might not be feasible. But I would say the answer is as soon as you can, stop taking other cases and focus in on one. But it's not as hard as people probably make it out to be. Because I do speak with a lot of attorneys who, do a lot of other things, and most everyone who practices several practices usually hates one of the practice areas that they're in. It's very rare that I meet somebody who loves all of the practice areas that they're in. So there's usually something, they do immigration and family. They love the immigration. They hate the family. So stop doing the family. But family pays the bills. Well, then start marketing more for immigration, get more immigration cases, and stop doing family. It's that simple. It's just a matter of, it's not easy, but once you kind of decide that you're not going to do that anymore, you can start going after the things that you want to do, and then it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Wow. You almost just laid out a little formula here. Is what I'm taking away from what you just said of, if you will, just making that decision to make the next right move to get you out of heavy on me and feeling like you're in that struggle. And then figuring out what you need, whether it's $10,000 a month or $5,000 a month, whatever your nut is that you need. And then I kind of wrote this down of picking one thing or maybe two things that you can do easily, rather quickly, that will give you an instant win, which puts some gas in your tank for confidence that, holy crap, you're like, yeah, I can do this. And that's what we all need in regards is some proof of concept to boost up your confidence. And then from there, you can drill down and hone down and start getting some clarity. But you can never get clarity and certainty, which I know everyone's always looking for, which is never there, but some level of it, proof of concept, I'd like to call it more so. Then from there, you can actually breathe and you can actually make an informed decision because you've removed the distress and the uncertainty. That's what I really like about what you just said.
I think everyone comes from a different starting point, right? So, where an attorney who's been at this 20 years is different and maybe has a lot more riding on it, in their mind at least, than someone who's just out of law school, doesn't have a family, right? So there's different spectrums of it. My opinion is just that, it's doable, so if you're miserable, then what do you have to lose, right? Mm-hmm. So if you already hate what you're doing, how much worse can it really get? I mean, yes, you can, I don't know who said this, but I've heard for most of us who are attorneys, I don't think any of us really think that we're going to become homeless. I think all of us know whether or not we have a law job, we're all educated enough and can find some type of work that, it might not be what we want to do, but we can find some sort of work and we're not going to be homeless. But when we think about doing these big things like cutting one of our practice area, that's 60% of our practice, our mind automatically goes to, well, if I don't do that, then I'm going to lose my house in foreclosure. I'm not going to be able to pay, for food and all of this. And things could get bad for a little while. But the truth is, I think most of us are resourceful enough that we can make it work. And if you're, like I said, if you're already in a bad spot, if you're already kind of miserable, what else do you have to lose? And I mean, my opinion is just do it. Just try it, see what happens. You'll land somewhere and then you'll go from there.
Yeah. I love what you said that about homeless. It's a fear of every entrepreneur, but you're exactly right. They look at that if I say no to a case and look at it from a money perspective. But what you started this podcast with, of looking at it from just an energetic and a focused perspective. And exactly, you're right. If you're frustrated and miserable and exhausted and burned out and overwhelmed and running around with a chicken with your head cut off and feeling like you own a job anyways, the risk there, and we all know it, we see stories all over social media and in the news, is so much more significant than taking one next action to maybe saying no to an area of law or leaving a partnership or what have you. And I think a lot of times the stress factor and the health factor, people try to don't pay attention to. They're always just focused on the money and the bottom line versus the impact that is weighing on you from a stress and a miserable level.
100% agree. Absolutely.
Well, Justin, tell us, thank you for being with us today. Tell us how we can stay connected with you, just to follow you and really be able to connect with your niche specific practice from a place of inspiration and just seeing how clear and unapologetic you are about your business model.
Yeah. So sticking with the niche thing, I have, my website is www.probatefirm.com. So probatefirm.com. And on Instagram, The Probate Law Firm. On Facebook, The Probate Law Firm. So I'm trying to get The Probate Law Firm out there as much as possible. That's probably the best way. And then Justin B. Stivers on all social media as well.
Excellent. And I'll have all the channels here posted in the show notes. And I cannot recommend enough. I joined Justin's blog and go to your point about your subject line, et cetera. I have to tell you, your subject line, when I see that, it does stop me in my shoes. It's very creative. It's to the point and very much in alignment with your niche specific practice. So I can't say enough to our listeners about getting on there, subscribing to that blog, because it's absolutely phenomenal. And if your blogs and newsletters are not in alignment with that, I would highly recommend that you learn a thing or two from Justin.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being our guest today. And we look forward to having you on again. I would love to interview you. You've probably had about 4 different podcast notes here that I really, really loved. And I would love to hear about, once you get this up and running, about how you created different packages in a niche specific practice. I really see that as episode number 2.
Awesome. Happy to do it.
All right. Thank you, listeners.
All right.